Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. In the last part, we finished off the third tier of levels, I believe. And now we're going to be revisiting Tomb Time because last part we also got the purple gem. And now we can use that to access the secondary path in this very level, allowing us to not only get the secondary clear gem, but also the actual box gem. And I guess it wasn't exactly too clear because I've only done this once thus far, but the way I'm handling fast forwarding for this is the same way I handled fast forwarding in Crash 2 and Crash 1, in that I'm speeding up the footage through the stuff we've already seen before, playing that level's theme from the Insane trilogy, and then when we reach the new stuff, we'll head back to normal speed, because otherwise it would just be me jump cutting there, and I feel for those who want like a proper walk through the level, it's not exactly the best thing to do. And here we go. Sort of. They want you to use the double jump to reach this area anyway, so you're not exactly supposed to come over to get that Uka-Uka crate even the first time through, but if you know that even the slide jump, you can get over here with no problem. Also, I've always found how Crash Bandicoot loads in a separate theme for the bonus pathways even a little bit weird, considering the music will often just cut off. With that said, outside the crates, this isn't a much harder section of level. Aside from the fact that I think the spears here work a little bit differently in that they rise in portions in 3 different wavelengths, which is a little bit odd. Like there's just that last bit of spear that doesn't raise the same way, which is weird. With that said, there is one little annoyance that comes from going this pathway and the oil slick being hard to control, similarly to the ice in Crash 2. And that's that there are still boxes we need to get alongside, along the main track level. So what I'm about to do, once we hit the main track, is just gonna speed up the backtracking, because it's backtracking in a Crash game. We've done it before, it always sucks. With that said, Crash 3 does it the best in that it doesn't do it much. I think Crash 3 only does it a total of 2 or 3 times total, compared to even Crash 1's 5 or so, I think. Crash 2's 5 or so, if memory serves. Mind you, even Crash 1, looking back, didn't do it too much, but Crash 1 also had bad level design, at least for the backtracking sort of stuff. So it's harder for me to care about in that regard. But that said, Tomb Time, going through it twice, it's easier the second time because you don't know what's happening, and even then I still don't think it's that hard of a level to begin with. But we do have the Death Tornado Spin now, for beating Entropy. I guess I can finally describe what that does, even though I think the next actual level does a better job of showing it off. With that said, before we hit off to the next actual level, there's another thing I need to go do first anyway, because we also now have the red gem, if memory serves, meaning we can now head back to Dynamite in Tier 1 to get the second gem there. I think it's Dynamite. No, Boneyard. Dynamite's the second level. No, we got the yellow gem. The red gem, I'm thinking ahead. We'll be back in Dynamite with the red gem later. With that said, same thing here, really. With that said, you don't need to break all the boxes along the way because the yellow gem pathway doesn't have any actual boxes on it. It's just a pathway with iron crates because it's just for the secondary clear gem. Also, I think this is the Crash game that started doing the thing where the gems now fill platforms rather than you just standing on the gems themselves for the gem pathways. I say think because off the top of my head, I barely pay attention to that one level of Crash 2 anyway, so I can't actively remember. With that said, it's just a harder variety of these types of obstacles. I honestly think the final level of this variety is harder than this anyway, so if you can beat even that level, you can beat this no problem. Because there's various different playstyles for Crash games. There's people who try to go up for everything as soon as they can. There's those that wait until they've gone through the levels once, then backtrack through the levels they couldn't get things all the way in for. And then there's people like me who try to sort of mix the two. With that said, still be careful because the Death Tornado Spin can actually be detrimental to you here because it can actually slide you right into some lava pits. But the Death Tornado Spin, the way it works is if you now mash the square button, your spin will be extended, and if you do that while jumping, it acts as a glide. Certain levels moving forward will require this either to get certain boxes or to make certain jumps, period. So use that to your advantage. Honestly, as long as you double jump and then do a death tornado spin, though, you're probably going to make it over most jumps in the game just fine, barring those that have trap enemies or nitro crates, I suppose. And we're about 36% of the way done. I forget exactly what accounts for what in this game's completion total. I'll probably find that by the beginning of the next part or something. With that said, it's now time for Tier 4 of levels, starting off with level 16, Sphinx Nader. Time for another normal Egypt stage once again. Also, very weird level to name after Terminator. Be careful there, as you just saw, there are boxes behind the starting line like it's a heart capsule to the left of a certain stage in a Mega Man game, Mega Man X game rather. Also, at the start of this level, there is a fork in the road, to the right and to the left. To beat the game, even 100%, you only need to take the right pathway, though. Because if I'm recalling correctly, on the left is just some iron crates you can't actively break, and lives. I think the two pathways converge right here through a teleport anyway? Or either that or a platform coming in from the left, so we don't need to do anything over there. Yeah, ever, really. The second clear gem in this level is gotten through a colored gem we have yet to obtain, if memory serves. Ah, don't give me a hug. The mummies are a bit of an odd enemy in that they'll kill you when they're in their coffin, or when they're out of their coffin. There's the word. With that said, if you just hesitate a moment before running forward, you can take care of the mummies more or less no problem. Also, I would actually recommend waiting for that particular lab assistant enemy to trigger the stone blocks the first time, because then the stone will just slide along the oil slick and destroy the nitro crates. You can still die there, obviously, but it's safer, and really, who doesn't like that? Unless you're trying to speed through this level, which we'll have to later on. Ugh, more on that again in a little bit, in a while, rather. I'm not actually sure how long this LP will be episode count-wise, because since I recorded this game level per level and visit per level even revisits are their own recording session, it's a little bit hard for me to tell exactly how many parts this is going to be off the top of my head. Because we haven't even gone through levels in a consistent amount per video, because level lengths are a little bit varied, especially when you include things such as the bike stages or the tiger stages. But you know what, I do appreciate that about the Crash games, because their level varieties are high enough. Sometimes levels can be 5 minutes long, or 2 minutes long, and that makes it a game that's a bit more interesting to revisit, because that means the pace isn't always just a slog. Sometimes you'll blast the level and you'll be like, yeah, I could do another one right now. Or sometimes you'll have one that's long and you'll be like, no, I'll take a break now. And now it's time for the bonus round. I'm torn. I honestly think I like most of the bonus rounds in Crash 2 more, despite Crash 3 doing more interesting things thanks to the power-ups. And I have to wonder if that's just because I preferred Crash without the extra power-ups due to the simplicity of it all, even with the extra mechanics 2 did add. And I feel like that's just more so a thing of, do I like 2 more for its moveset, or 3 more for whatever else it adds? And that gets complicated because my feelings on Crash 3 are complicated. Also, weird little thing about TNT crates. They can't destroy iron-rimmed crates, and I actually don't like that too much. Because I feel the TNT should be instant destruction to anything. With that said, I suppose that does allow them to make more interesting platforming segments wherein you can just create or destroy crates in such a way that the iron-ribbed ones can create platforms, I suppose. That was a run-on sentence. And I have already seen one platforming section in Crash 4 that does some interesting stuff with that due to some of the new mechanics that one has. I don't have the demo, though, because I'm not a pre-order person. I don't like pre-ordering games. I think the last game I pre-ordered may have been... Oh, dear. What was it? Oh, God, what was it? Was it Sun and Moon for Pokemon? It very well may have been. Oh, dear. Huh. Although, depending on what happens, I might pre-order Final Fantasy 16, depending on when that comes out. Well, yeah, because the PS5 event happened. I'm looking forward to that. Not getting one launch day or even launch month. I'm probably going to wait until post-Christmas, mid-January to see if I can get one, because honestly, I don't trust time. Either way, it's time for another new mechanic. This is Bye Blimps. We're now in a dogfighting simulator. With that said, dogfighting isn't exactly our focus here. There are enemy planes that will shoot at you, and you need to press circle to shoot back, but you can also press, I believe it's square, to spin the plane around and minimize damage. Our goal here is to take out a certain amount of targets, in this case, the 7 Cortex blimps. And upon destroying them all, you get the crystal and you're done. With that said, there are still crates to get in this level, and they're all hoisted below hot air balloons, which go down in one shot. You can either shoot the box itself or the balloon. Usually shooting the box will give you a little bit of a bonus, though, like some extra multi-food or an extra life. There are special balloons, though, and crates in this level that are marked with a white balloon with a red cross. Those give you extra health because you have a unique health meter for this, and the enemy planes can drain that health pretty efficiently if you don't start spinning or just start turning around. And also, here in the PlayStation version, there's a very particular fun thing about this level, technically a cheat code. On the title screen, if you hold the triangle button as the 3rd demo loads, you assume control of Coco in this level. And if you pause the game in that demo and choose to return to the warp room, you start a new game with all of the power-ups in the game from the boss fight. So you can theoretically get most of the power-ups in the game, or most of the items in the game on your first visit. Hell, you could even technically get the relics on the first visit, but again, I'll talk about those eventually. And there you go. There's only, I think, 2 of these levels in the game. No, 3 technically, but the 3rd one operates a little bit differently. And, they don't overstay their welcome. They're pretty short, but I also just don't find them that interesting. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I don't like dogfighters. That's never been a gameplay mechanic I've ever liked. Even Sly 3, which is my favorite Sly Cooper game. I don't like that one chapter that heavily revolves around that. Oh, hey, another Coco stage. Time for Tell No Tales. If memory serves, we don't leave Tell No Tales this part. Well, we leave it this part, but we don't reach the next level. Because the second jet ski stage is long if you play like I do, because I tend to play these levels pretty carefully. Otherwise, this level isn't too different from the first one, aside from the fact they just increase the amount of bombs, the amount of boxes, the amount of things that can kill you. There's not even, I think... No, there is a new hazard in this stage, actually. There's going to be some lab assistance on this weird little tower rising out of the water that'll be swinging an anchor around in a 360-degree fashion, so don't touch the anchor, otherwise you can smack upside the head with an anchor. That'll hurt a lot. I think there might also be now some lab assistance in boats rowing around, but I forget if those were in the first stage or not. Ah, seagull! But interestingly, I mentioned, I believe last part or 2 parts ago, that you can access a Spyro the Dragon 1 demo in this game on the title screen. But this level is notably accessible in Spyro the Dragon in that game's title screen if you hold L1 in triangle, which there are notable differences about this level in that demo, where there is 1 less crates, there are 3 lives seen behind some yellow buoys, which are halfway in the level in the finished game. The crystal's placed a little bit differently, where I think it's mid-air near a ramp, and the music is just slightly different. I do like that little friendliness that Insomniac and Naughty Dog started having from around this era. Because moving forward, even with like Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, they were always throwing nice little jabs at each other, and I loved the 2 of them for that. With that said, I think in the current generation of gaming, Naughty Dog isn't as interesting as Insomniac. Because while Insomniac doesn't put out games as often, because I think before Spider-Man and Miles Morales, therefore, which will be out by the time this gets uploaded more than likely, their last game was Sunset Overdrive, which wasn't too great from what I saw. Whereas Naughty Dog, yeah, they made 4 Uncharted games, 2 The Last of Us's, and that's it. But if you count even like the spin-off Uncharted's, they've more or less been making the same kind of game for damn near a decade at this point, haven't they? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're good at something, don't like make sure you know you're good at it and make it work to your advantage. But I just want to see Naughty Dog make something that's not like a third-person, behind-the-back survival shooter of sorts. Because I love Uncharted. I love The Last of Us 1, at least. I think 2 has some problems. And both narratively and gameplay-wise, I think it's just paced some weird ways. But I think Insomniac has just been more consistent in this more recent era. That said, I think they were pretty neck and neck in the PS2 era, too. At least on the Jak and Daxter, Ratchet & Clank side. Actually, wait, no, Naughty Dog didn't make the later Crash games after this. They made CTR, but then it was it Universal Interactive? Or no, they started shopping around the different studios, I think. And yeah, Crash in the PS2 Alan Edwards era had some problems. Sometimes problems of being too much, sometimes problems of being too little. But hey, Vicarious Visions nailed the GBA games. Honestly, I think one of the reasons I find these levels just not so interesting is that by and large, they're a second type of water level. And I'm usually fine with water and ice levels. But I think if you oversaturate your game with them, you start to have problems. Because, like, I think the swimming levels were enough. They didn't need this type of water level in it. And I have a feeling that has to do with the thing that, until even more recently, games have always tried to outdo their prequels or midquels by always being bigger and more. And I don't think there's a problem with that mechanically, but I think there is a problem with that in terms of like actual game size. And here's me thinking I missed a crate, because I very well may have, and this happens a lot. Oh wait, no, I'm going back because I forgot to go this way first, because this level's a bit hard to tell which way is the right direction, even with the arrow for me. Either way, going back to the topic I was saying. I feel the best sequels nowadays are ones that just refine the mechanics from the first one and then add enough to make it seem more interesting without adding like too much in terms of game size. I think the best way to compare this is Banjo-Kazooie into Banjo-Tooie. Because I think Tooie went a bit too big and grand with its scale, even for like individual jiggies. And that could continue onwards into certain other games from that era. You could see Galaxy 1 to Galaxy 2 as that, Arkham Asylum into Arkham City, even though I like Arkham City more. Though my favorite Arkham game is Origins, so I'm a bit of the oddball in that franchise anyway. There's that big balance of size versus refinement, and I think Crash 3, in general, with how many styles it has, errs a bit towards more the size than the refinement. Although I do think the mechanics in this game all work well. I just think there's too many of them. I mean, it's weird, because people had a similar problem with that, with Sonic the Hedgehog games, looking back. At least in the earlier 3D game days, like Adventure 1, Adventure 2, Heroes, Shadow, that stopped appearing as much. And honestly, I think for Adventure 1 and 2, it worked fine. I don't like some of the mechanics that were there, don't get me wrong, but I think the amount they had worked fine, and especially for the depth they all had. I kind of wish we actually got more playable characters in Sonic games nowadays, but that's a topic for a later day, a later Sonic game. Namely, whenever I finally get to doing Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. Because I have thoughts about those games, some positive, many negative, many in the middle. Oh, thank God we're finally done. That level can drag on. I don't like the jet ski levels. But with that, we're about halfway through Tier 4. And with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in Part 6, we're, based off the averages at least, going to be finishing off Tier 4, maybe even starting off Tier 5. Who knows? I forget how long the next couple levels are. See you guys then.